Every gardener you know is fighting for space, digging up lawns, building raised beds, spending hundreds on soil, and getting average results at best. Meanwhile, a small group of growers are quietly harvesting more food than their neighbors, from buckets, bags, and balconies. No garden, no dig, no excuses. The difference isn't money, it isn't land. It's knowing which vegetables were built for containers, and nobody is talking about them. Most container gardening advice gives you the same tired list. Tomatoes, lettuce, herbs, you've heard it 100 times. But there are 9 vegetables sitting in the shadows, underused, underrated, and almost completely ignored, that don't just survive in containers, they absolutely thrive in them. I grew every single one of these myself. The results changed how I think about small space growing forever. By the end of this video, you'll know in the 9 hidden vegetables that produce abundantly in any container, exactly which container size and soil setup each one needs, and the single biggest mistake that kills container harvest before they start. Stay with me, this list will surprise you. Here's the truth most nurseries and garden centers will never tell you. The vegetables lining their shelves and filling their advice columns were selected for one thing: mass production in open ground, wide rows, heavy machinery, acres of flat farmland. That's the system those plants were optimized for, not your patio, not your balcony, not the 3 square feet of sunlight you've got outside your apartment window. So when you take those same mainstream recommendations and put them into containers, you get mediocre results. Stunted growth, poor yields, frustration. And most gardeners blame themselves. They think they're doing something wrong, they're not. They were just handed the wrong list. Here's what I discovered after years of container growing, testing dozens of varieties across buckets, grow bags, fabric pots, and repurposed containers of every shape and size. The vegetables that dominate in containers are almost never the ones being talked about on the gardening mainstream. They're the overlooked ones. The ones that were quietly thriving in small spaces long before raised bed culture made gardening trendy again. These 9 vegetables share a specific set of traits that make them uniquely suited to container life. Compact but productive root systems that don't fight the pot. High yield relative to the space they occupy. Natural tolerance for the temperature swings and moisture fluctuations that containers create. And most importantly, they reward the kind of attentive, small-scale growing that container gardeners naturally do. The mainstream gardening world keeps pointing you toward the same handful of plants because they're safe recommendations. Familiar, easy to sell. But safe recommendations don't fill your kitchen with food. The right recommendations do. And here's what frustrates me most. This information isn't hidden in some obscure research paper. These vegetables aren't rare or hard to find. Every single one on this list is accessible, affordable, and proven. They've just been buried under decades of the same recycled advice while gardeners with limited space kept struggling unnecessarily. That ends today. I put this list together specifically for the grower who doesn't have a sprawling backyard, for the apartment dweller, the renter, the small patio gardener who refuses to give up on growing real food. If that's you, this list was made for you. Here's exactly what nobody is planting and exactly why they should be. Number 9. Calabrese broccoli, the cut-and-come-again container crop. Most people think broccoli needs a full garden bed to perform. Wrong. Calabrese broccoli produces a central head, and the moment you cut it, it immediately pushes out side shoots that keep producing for weeks. One plant in a 5-gallon container can deliver harvests every 4 to 7 days for up to 2 months straight. And it thrives in cooler temperatures, making it perfect for spring and autumn container growing on any balcony or porch. If you've got morning sun and a pot that's at least 12 inches deep, you've got everything this plant needs. But number 8 is something almost nobody associates with container growing at all. Number 8. Kohlrabi, the underground surprise that grows above ground. Kohlrabi looks strange. That's probably why most gardeners walk past it at the nursery without a second glance. But here's what makes it remarkable for containers. The entire edible portion grows above the soil, which means it needs almost no root depth whatsoever. A container just 8 inches deep is sufficient. It matures in as little as 45 days, tolerates crowding better than almost any other brassica, and delivers a crisp, sweet harvest that tastes like a cross between an apple and a turnip. 3 to 4 plants fit comfortably in a single 10-gallon pot. Perfect for beginner container growers who want fast, reliable results. Number 7, though, is one that will genuinely surprise you. Number 7. Perpetual spinach, the harvest that never stops. This is not regular spinach. Perpetual spinach is a chard variety that behaves like spinach but refuses to bolt in heat the way traditional spinach does. That single trait changes everything for container growers in warm climates. It produces continuously from spring through autumn, with outer leaves ready to harvest while the center keeps pushing new growth. One container of 4 plants can supply enough greens for a family of 2 every single week for an entire season. It asks for almost nothing: a 10-inch deep pot, consistent moisture, and average sunlight. Nutritionally dense, incredibly productive, and almost completely ignored by mainstream container guides. Number 6. Patio eggplant, the compact powerhouse most gardeners overlook. Standard eggplant varieties grow large and sprawling. Patio eggplant varieties were specifically bred for container life, reaching just 18 to 24 inches tall while producing full-sized fruits in quantities that rival garden-grown plants. A single plant in a 5-gallon pot can yield 6 to 10 fruits per season. It loves heat, thrives in dark containers that absorb warmth, and performs exceptionally well on south-facing balconies and rooftops. Most gardeners never consider eggplant for container growing. That's a mistake this list is going to correct permanently. Stick around because the top 5 on this list get significantly more productive. And number 2 is a vegetable so well suited to containers that it actually performs better in a pot than it does in the ground. That's not an exaggeration. Keep watching. Number 5. Climbing beans, the vertical yield machines. Here's where container growing gets genuinely exciting. Climbing beans don't spread outward. They grow upward, which makes them the perfect crop for small spaces with vertical potential. A single 10-gallon container with a simple trellis or bamboo frame can support 4 to 6 climbing bean plants that produce continuously from midsummer through first frost. Yields of 3 to 5 pounds of beans per plant per season are achievable with consistent watering and a weekly liquid feed. They fix their own nitrogen, which means they actually improve the container soil as they grow. Train them up a fence, a railing, or a wall, and suddenly your vertical space becomes your most productive growing real estate. Number 4. Swiss chard, the all-season container workhorse. Swiss chard tolerates heat. It tolerates cold. It tolerates partial shade. It tolerates neglect. For a container grower dealing with unpredictable conditions, shifting light, inconsistent watering, temperature extremes, this level of resilience is genuinely invaluable. A single large-stemmed chard plant in a 12-inch pot produces harvestable leaves within 50 to 60 days and continues producing for up to 12 months in mild climates. The rainbow varieties add visual interest that makes container displays genuinely beautiful. Grow it on a windowsill, a doorstep, or a rooftop. It performs everywhere. But number 3 takes container productivity to a completely different level. Number 3. Dwarf butter beans, the protein factory in a pot. Most gardeners think of beans as a ground crop. Dwarf butterbean varieties shatter that assumption completely. Reaching just 18 inches tall with no staking required, they produce abundantly in an 8-inch deep container, one of the shallowest root requirements of any bean variety. A single 10-gallon pot planted with 6 dwarf butterbean seeds can yield up to 4 pounds of fresh beans in a single season. High in protein, easy to dry and store, and reliable across a wide range of climates from Zone 4 through Zone 9. This is survival-level food production from a container that fits on a window ledge. Number 2. Tumbling Tom tomatoes, patios, the container tomato that was born for this. Every container list mentions tomatoes, but almost none of them mention the specific variety that was literally bred for container growing. Tumbling Tom produces cascading stems that spill naturally over the edges of hanging baskets, window boxes, and pots. No staking, no caging, no support structures needed. Each plant produces hundreds of cherry-sized fruits per season with a flavor profile that outperforms most supermarket tomatoes entirely. 2 plants in a 12-inch hanging basket deliver harvests so consistent and continuous that many growers describe it as having a tomato tap they can turn on all summer. This is not a compromise container tomato. This is the real thing. Number 1. Perpetual kale, the single most productive container vegetable alive. Nothing on this list, nothing in container growing, full stop, delivers the combination of productivity, nutrition, resilience, and longevity that perpetual kale does. A single plant in a 12-inch pot produces harvestable leaves within 60 days and will continue producing for 2 to 3 years without replanting. It tolerates temperatures down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It improves in flavor after frost, It regrows within days of harvesting. One plant provides enough greens to make daily smoothies, salads, and cooked meals for a single person, week after week, season after season. No other container vegetable comes close to this return on a single planting. If you grow nothing else from this list, grow this one. Here's what I want you to notice about every single vegetable on this list. Because there's a pattern running underneath all 9 of them. A common thread that explains exactly why these vegetables thrive in containers while the mainstream recommendations struggle. And once you see it, you'll never approach container growing the same way again. Every vegetable on this list possesses at least 3 of the following 5 characteristics. And the ones at the top of the list possess all 5. First, shallow or compact root architecture. Every one of these vegetables develops its root system efficiently within a confined space rather than fighting against it. They don't need depth to perform, they need density. That's a fundamentally different biological strategy from sprawling ground crops, and it's the single most important trait a container vegetable can have. Wide, deep root systems are an asset in open ground. In a container, they become a liability. Every plant on this list sidesteps that problem entirely. Second, continuous harvest rather than single harvest. Notice how many of these vegetables produce repeatedly from the same plant across an entire season. Perpetual kale, perpetual spinach, climbing beans, tumbling tom, Swiss chard, cut and come again calabrese. This is not a coincidence. Single harvest crops, plants that produce once then die, give you one return on your container investment. Continuous harvest crops give you dozens. For a container grower with limited space, continuous yield is the highest possible return on every pot you own. Third, resilience to container-specific stress. Containers fluctuate in ways open ground does not. They heat up faster. They dry out faster. They swing between wet and dry more dramatically. Every vegetable on this list carries a natural tolerance for at least one of these stressors that most mainstream container recommendations simply don't have. That resilience is what separates a container vegetable from a vegetable that merely survives in a container. Fourth, high yield relative to plant footprint. Every one of these vegetables produces a disproportionate amount of food relative to the horizontal space it occupies. Some grow vertically. Some produce continuously from a small canopy. Some pack extraordinary nutritional density into compact fruits. The yield per square inch metric is what matters in container growing, not total yield in ideal conditions. Fifth, low input requirements. The best container vegetables don't demand expensive soil amendments, complex feeding schedules, or specialized equipment to perform at their best. Every plant on this list responds generously to basic, consistent care. Water, light, a balanced feed every 2 weeks. That's the system. And it works every time. Here's the real takeaway from this entire list. Container growing failure is almost never about the gardener. It's about the plant selection. Put the wrong plant in a container and you'll fight it all season for a disappointing harvest. Put the right plant in a container and it rewards you with more food than you expected from a space smaller than you imagined possible. These 9 vegetables are the right plants. Full stop. And now that you understand exactly why they work, not just that they work, you have something more valuable than a list. You have a framework. And a filter you can apply to every plant you consider growing in a container from this point forward. Ask yourself, does this plant have a compact root system? Does it produce continuously? Is it resilient to container stress? Is its yield proportionate to its footprint? Does it perform on basic inputs? If the answer is yes to 3 or more of those questions, you have a container winner. If the answer is no, you have a plant that belongs in the ground. That's the pattern. That's what the mainstream container guides never explain. And that's what will make every container decision you make from today significantly smarter than every decision you made before watching this video. You came into this video knowing the same container list everyone else knows. You're leaving it with 9 vegetables that most gardeners have never seriously considered, and a framework for evaluating every container plant you'll ever grow from this point forward. That's the real win here. Your action plan is simple. Pick 2 vegetables from this list, one from the top 5 and one that surprised you, and get them into containers before the end of this week. Don't overthink the setup. A pot, quality potting mix, consistent water, and a basic fortnightly feed. That's all any of these plants need to start producing for you. Here's your challenge. Drop a comment below right now and tell me which 2 you're starting with. I read every single comment and I personally reply to as many as I can. Your answer also helps me understand exactly which follow-up videos to make next. So your comment directly shapes what this channel produces for you. If this list genuinely shifted how you think about container growing, share it with one person in your life who's been struggling with small space gardening. One share puts this information in front of someone who needs it today. Subscribe if you haven't already. Every video on this channel is built around the same mission that drove this one, cutting through recycled gardening advice and giving you the strategies that actually work in the real spaces real people actually have. Until next time, grow smart, grow abundantly, and never let limited space limit what you can produce.